The night was calm, too calm. It's a kind of silence that pressed against the walls of John's small suburban house like a heavy blanket. The old wooden clock ticked on the living room wall, its sound sharp in the stillness. John had been sitting on his worn sofa, half asleep, the television playing some late-night rerun he wasn't even watching. His eyes were heavy, his thoughts drifting. When suddenly a sound broke the silence, a faint creak, too sharp, too deliberate. At first he thought it was the pipes, or maybe the wind pushing against the windows. But then he heard it again, closer this time, coming from down the hallway. He straightened, heart picking up speed, his tiredness gone in an instant. He reached for the old baseball bat leaning against the side of the couch, his knuckles white as he gripped it tightly. Living alone for years had made him cautious, sometimes even paranoid, but this sound was different. Someone or something was inside his house, step by step. He moved quietly down the hall, the wood floor creaking softly under his weight. His ears strained to catch any movement, and then he heard it. The sound of water. A steady trickle, like the bathroom sink running. John's throat went dry. He never left the water on. His mind raced through. Possibilities. Had a thief broken in and decided to wash up? Was someone drunk and stumbled into the wrong house? Lifted the bat higher, his body tense, and slowly pushed the bathroom door wider. The dim light from the hallway spilled inside, revealing a figure crouched by the sink. For a moment, his brain refused to understand what he was seeing. It was a girl, Lore, at least she looked like one. But her skin had a pale shimmer that caught the light in a way no human skin ever could. And her hair, damp and tangled, clung to her shoulders with strands that seemed to glimmer faintly like threads of silver. She turned her head slowly toward him, eyes wide, glowing faintly with a soft, unnatural light. His breath caught in his throat. For a long moment neither moved, the only sound, the steady drip of water. John felt every muscle in his body screaming to run, to swing the bat, to do anything but stand frozen. Yet something in her expression stopped him. She did not look dangerous. She looked frightened, trembling as though she had been running for miles. Her lips parted, and a weak, broken voice came out, fragile and almost pleading. "Please, let me clean myself." The words were halting, accented in a way he had never heard before, but clear enough. John's grip on the bat loosened. A fraction. He blinked, unsure if he was dreaming, if he had fallen asleep on the couch, and was now lost in some strange nightmare. But the fear in her voice was too real, the water on her skin too solid. She was real, and she was here, standing in his bathroom, like some strange visitor from another world. His instincts screamed at him to throw her out, to call someone, anyone, to handle this. But his eyes caught the details he had missed at first glance. The way her hands were scraped raw, as though she had crawled through rough ground. The dirt smeared across her legs, the way her breathing shuddered like she had been holding it. In 4 hours, she looked less like a threat and more like a cornered animal. The glowing patterns faintly etched on her arms, pulsed with each breath, fading and returning like a weak heartbeat. John lowered the bat slightly, though he kept it. "Ready, just in case?" "Who are you?" he whispered, his voice unsteady. She only shook her head quickly, strands of wet hair falling into her face. Eyes darting toward the window, as though she expected someone or something to appear at any moment. "No time," she whispered again, and her voice cracked. "Just let me wash." John hesitated, torn between fear and something he couldn't quite name. Compassion, maybe, or simple human curiosity. This was impossible, completely insane, yet his gut told him she wasn't here to harm him. The tension in her small frame, the desperation in her glowing eyes, it was survival, not aggression. Slowly, carefully, he stepped back, lowering the bat all the way. "Fine," he muttered, almost to himself. "Just do what you need to." Relief washed over her face, and she turned back to the sink, letting the water run over her hands and arms as if it was the first clean touch she had felt in years. John stood in the doorway, torn between staying and running, his heart still hammering in his chest. Every creak of the house seemed louder now, every shadow darker. He could feel it deep in his bones. This night was far from ordinary. Something had found its way into his life, something he did not understand, and whether he liked it or not, there was no going back. He didn't know who she was, why she had come, or what danger followed her, but as he watched her fragile figure trembling, under the soft light, he knew one thing with certainty. His life had just changed forever. The night had stretched thin, every second dragging on like a thread pulled too tight. John sat in the living room, the baseball bat leaning against his leg, his ears tuned to every sound from the bathroom down the hall. He could hear the faint splash of water, the quiet scrape of movement, the occasional muffled breath that didn't belong to any ordinary human. His mind spun in endless circles. Who was she? What was she? And why his house, of all places? He tried to convince himself he should call the police. But what would he say? There's a glowing stranger in my bathroom, and she begged me to let her wash. They'd think he'd lost his mind. Maybe he had. Minutes passed before she emerged. Her steps were slow, hesitant, like she was afraid of what awaited her outside that small room. John lifted his eyes from the floor, and when he saw her clearly in the light, his breath caught again. She looked more fragile now, her face pale, her damp silver hair clinging to her shoulders, but there was something different in her presence. The faint glow on her skin, the strange markings running along her arms and neck had dimmed like fire reduced to embers. Yet her eyes still carried that soft, unnatural light, a light that unsettled him as much as it drew him in. She stopped. A few feet away, her gaze darting to the open window, the door, and then back to him. As if calculating how much she could trust him, John cleared his throat, gripping the bat again, though he kept it low. You need to tell me what's going on. Who are you? His voice was sharp, though a tremor betrayed the unease beneath his words. She shook her head quickly, strands of wet hair falling across her glowing eyes. No name, she whispered, her tone urgent. Not safe for you to know. John frowned, frustration building, but before he could push, she stepped closer, her voice breaking. If they find me here, they will hurt you too. The words sent a chill down his spine. They, whoever they were, the way she said it made. His stomach tightened. He searched her face for any sign of deception, but all he saw was fear, raw and heavy. The kind that came from running too long and too far. He wanted to demand more answers, yet something inside told him pushing her too hard would only make her retreat, maybe vanish back into the night without a trace. He leaned back in his chair, running a hand through his hair, trying to think. You break into my house? He said slowly. And now you tell me I'm in danger? You think I'm just going to accept that without an explanation? For the first time, she looked him in the eye, and the glow there seemed to burn brighter. I had no choice, she said, her voice cracking under the weight of her words. Your water, clean, pure. My body was burning. I needed it, or I would have died. She lifted her sleeve and revealed her forearm, the glowing lines beneath her skin pulsing weakly. John stared, unable to look away. They weren't tattoos, they were alive, shifting faintly like veins of light coursing beneath the surface. It was both mesmerizing and terrifying. His throat tightened. What are you? He whispered, though part of him wasn't sure he wanted to know. She didn't answer right away, only lowered her sleeve again, her small shoulders trembling. Not from here, she admitted at last. Not from this world. I was sent. I escaped. And now I hide. The last word came out as a near-broken whisper, her eyes flicking once more toward the window, as if shadows themselves might be watching. John sat frozen, trying to digest her confession. Not from this world. It sounded impossible. Yet the evidence was right before his eyes. Her skin, her glow, her strange desperation at all, screamed of something beyond earth. His rational mind fought against it, but deep down, he knew denial would be a lie. The silence between them grew heavy, filled only by the hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. At last, John asked the only question that mattered. Who's looking for you? The color drained further from her face, and her body stiffened. She stepped back, shaking her head. Dangerous, she muttered. Hunters. They do not stop. If they know I'm here, you will die too. Her hands clenched tightly, and for a fleeting second, John thought he saw something shift beneath. her skin like faint sparks dancing in the glow of her veins. Whatever she wasn't just fragile. She was carrying something far bigger, something powerful, maybe even deadly. John swallowed hard, staring at her trembling figure. A part of him wanted to throw her out, lock the door, and pretend none of this had ever happened. But another part, louder than his fear, whispered that if he abandoned her now, she wouldn't survive the night. And maybe, just maybe, she had come here for a reason, not by accident, but because he was the only one who could help her. Leaned forward, his voice steady but low. "Then you'd better start telling me the truth," he said. "Goes, if we're both in danger, I need to know exactly what I'm up against." Her glowing eyes lingered on him for a long moment, weighing his words. Finally, she whispered, "If I tell you, there is no turning back." And John realized she wasn't just hiding a secret, she was hiding a war. The air between them thickened with silence, heavy and uneasy, as if the walls themselves were waiting for her answer. John leaned back in his chair, his knuckles white around the baseball bat, though he didn't even realize he was still holding it. The stranger stood frozen in the faint glow of the living room light, her damp silver hair clinging to her face, her glowing eyes flicking toward every shadow. She looked exhausted, but her fear was sharp and alive. Finally, she drew in a shaky breath, as if gathering the courage to peel back the truth. "My name." She hesitated, her lips trembling before the word left them. "Leora." The name sounded strange, musical, as if it carried echoes of a place John had never known. She quickly looked down, as though saying it aloud had broken some invisible rule. "You asked what I am, I will tell you. But you must understand, if you choose to know, you cannot go back to your old life. Everything will change." John forced a hollow laugh, though his chest felt tight. "Lady, an alien broke into my house to use my bathroom. I think my old life ended about an hour ago." His attempt at humor fell flat against her seriousness. Leora stepped closer, her glowing veins pulsing faintly through the skin of her hands. "I am not human, my people. We were created to serve, to obey, nothing more." She cut herself off, biting her lip as if afraid the words themselves would summon something terrible. John sat up straighter. "Created?" he asked. "Like, genetically? Engineered?" she interrupted, her voice sharp, her accent curling strangely around the English words. "Made to fight wars we did not start, made to follow commands we did not choose. But I escaped. I cannot be a weapon anymore." Her confession dropped into the room like a stone in deep water, rippling through John's mind. He stared at her glowing skin, the shifting veins, the strange energy that seemed alive under her surface. If what she said was true, then she wasn't. Just from another world, she was proof of something darker, something terrifying. Someone out there was making beings like her. He swallowed hard, his voice low. "And these hunters you mentioned? They're after you because you escaped?" Leora nodded, her glowing eyes glistening. "You never let one go. A runaway is a threat. If I am free, it means others will want to be free too. And for them, that cannot be allowed." She wrapped her arms tightly around herself, as if the memory alone sent a chill through her body. John dragged a hand across his face, trying to think. Everything in him screamed that this was too big for him, too dangerous. But another voice whispered louder. The same voice that had kept him from throwing her out into the night. What she said was true, and helping her wasn't just about protecting one stranger. It might mean standing against something much larger. Before he could respond, a sound outside made them both freeze. Soft hum, almost mechanical, drifting through the quiet night air. Leora's head snapped toward the window, her eyes glowing brighter. "They are close," she whispered, terror spilling into her voice. "I thought I lost them, but no, they found me." Who's out there?" She shook her head violently, already moving toward the shadows of the living room. "Not human. Not your police. Not your kind. Hunters. They will see me. They will take me and you. You will not survive it." John ran to the window and pulled the curtain back just enough to peek outside. At first he saw nothing but the quiet street, the pale glow of the street lamps, the trees swaying softly in the night breeze. But then Across the road, near the edge of the woods, something moved. Not a person, not an animal. A figure tall, angular, with a faint metallic sheen that caught the light. Then another stepped forward, its shape too precise, too sharp. To be human, his blood turned cold. "They're not real," he whispered to himself. But the figures kept moving, slow and deliberate, scanning the area with glowing lenses where eyes should have been. Leora pressed herself against the wall, her chest rising and falling quickly. "You see now?" she whispered. "They are machines, hunters. They will not stop." John turned back toward her, gripping the bat tighter, though he knew it would be useless against whatever those things were. "And what do we do?" Her glowing eyes lifted toward him, and for the first time, there was no hesitation in her gaze. "We run." The sound outside grew louder, the hum deepening into something almost like a growl. Shadows moved closer to the house. John's throat went dry as he realized he was standing on the edge of something far bigger than anything he'd ever known. His normal, quiet life was gone. The question now wasn't whether to help Hurt, was whether they would even survive the night. Leora's voice broke through his racing thoughts, soft but certain. "Stay with me, John, if you stay. I will show you everything." And in that moment, he knew he was no longer in control of his life. The night was no longer silent. What once was the quiet hum of cicadas and the rustle of trees now carried the heavy, mechanical rhythm of something inhuman moving through the dark. John pressed his back against the wall, every muscle in his body tight as he strained to hear. The low metallic thud of footsteps grew closer, steady, unhurried like predators that already knew their prey was trapped. Leora's breathing was fast, but her eyes burned with a cold fire. "They are scanning," she whispered, her voice low and urgent. "Every heartbeat, every breath, every flicker of heat in the air, they will find us." She looked at him then, her glowing gaze sharp. "Must choose now, John. Stay behind, and you live for a few more minutes. Come with me, and you may live for longer." His mouth went dry. "Where? Where do we even go?" She stepped forward, her silver hair catching the faint light, and pointed toward the back door. "The woods. They do not move fast in the trees, but we must not be seen when we leave." John swallowed the rising fear in his throat and nodded, grabbed his coat from the chair and shoved his feet into his boots, his hands trembling. House. As he opened the back door, the cool night air rushed in, bringing with it the faint metallic hum, closer now, almost on the street itself. He glanced once at his living room, the safe walls, the ordinary life he had lived until tonight, and then stepped outside. Closing the door quietly behind him, the woods loomed at the edge of his backyard, dark and endless. The shadows of branches reached out like skeletal hands. Leora moved quickly, silently, as though she had lived her whole life in hiding. John followed, his heart pounding in his ears, every crack of a twig sounding like thunder under his boots. Behind them, the sound of the hunters shifted. A faint hiss cut through the air, followed by a high-pitched whine that seemed to search, to probe, to dig into the silence. John dared one glance back and froze at the far end of the street. Under the pale light of the lamp stood one of the machines. Its body was tall and unnaturally thin, made of glistening black metal with faint glowing lines running across its limbs. Where a face should have been was only a smooth plate of shifting light, scanning in slow, cold arcs. Another hunter stepped from the shadows, its head tilting as if listening, calculating. John's stomach dropped. He wanted to run, but Leora gripped his arm tightly, pulling him down into the cover of the trees. "Do not move fast," she whispered. "They see motion before anything else. Slow, slow." They crouched in the brush, trying to blend into the darkness. The machines stood still for a moment, their glowing faces pulsing faintly, and then, in perfect unison, they turned their heads toward the forest. John's blood ran cold. "They know," he whispered. Leora's jaw tightened. "Then we run." They bolted deeper into the woods, branches snapping under their feet, the sharp breath of panic burning in John's chest. Behind them, the hunters moved, not loudly, but with terrifying precisional footsteps, out of rhythm, no wasted motion. They weren't chasing wildly. They were following with the confidence of predators who always caught their prey. The forest grew darker as they went, the canopy thick above them. Leora darted left, right, weaving between trees with an ease that John struggled to keep up with. His legs ached, his lungs burned, but adrenaline pushed him forward. Still, the hum behind them grew louder. The glow of the hunter's searchlight slicing through the trees in quick flashes at last. They stumbled into a small clearing, where the moon broke through the branches above. John bent over, hands on, his knees gasping for air. We can't outrun them forever, he managed between breaths. Leora turned, her face pale but fierce, her glowing eyes unblinking. You are right. They're stronger, faster, made for one purpose, but they are not perfect. They do not understand fear or choice. That is why I escaped them. John frowned, wiping sweat from his brow. Then what's the plan? Because right now it feels like we're just waiting to die. Before she could answer, a beam of cold blue light cut across the clearing, scanning the ground. John's body froze, every muscle locked in terror. Slowly he turned his head and saw one of the hunters step out from the tree line, its face glowing. Scanning the air, another appeared a moment later on the opposite side, trapping them between. John's grip tightened around the useless bat he still carried, though he knew it would shatter against those metallic bodies. His heartbeat was so loud he wondered if they could hear it. Then Leora stepped forward. Her skin glowed brighter, the veins of light in her arms surging with energy. She raised her hands, and John could feel the air shift around them, heavy with static. The hunters paused, tilting their heads as though registering something new. John's eyes widened. What are you doing? He hissed. Leora's voice was calm, steady, but filled with something deep, something old. I am not only made to obey, I was also made to destroy. A crackle of energy sparked in her palms, the faint hum growing, louder, vibrating in John's bones. For the first time that night, the hunters stopped moving forward. John realized with a shiver that this girl hiding in his house, asking only to wash, was far more dangerous than he had ever imagined. The clearing glowed with light as the standoff began. The clearing pulsed with a strange glow, as if the very air had come alive. John's eyes watered, his chest tight with the pressure of unseen energy, and for a fleeting second he wondered if his heart would stop. But Leora stood tall in the moonlight, her pale skin burning with veins of silver light that ran up her arms and across her face like glowing rivers. Her hair floated as if caught in water, her presence no longer fragile, no longer desperate. She wasn't just a runaway alien girl anymore. She was something far greater, far more dangerous. The hunters seemed to recognize it too. They paused, their smooth faces flickering with shifting patterns of light as if recalculating, reassessing the threat before them, their heads tilted in eerie unison, their long metallic arms folding outwards. From their hands, blades of humming energy extended, casting cold, sharp glows into the trees. John's grip on the bat faltered. He was staring at Leora, his mind spinning with fear and awe. What? What are you? He whispered, the words barely audible. Her glowing eyes met his, steady and almost sad. Not what you think, she said softly. Not a refugee, not a prisoner. I am their secret. I was made to obey, but also to turn against them if the time ever came. Turned back toward the hunters, her voice sharper now, filled with steel. The time is now. Before John could process her words, the forest exploded with light. Leora raised her hands, and arcs of crackling energy burst outward like lightning tearing through the night. The first hunter staggered back as a beam of pure force struck its chest, denting the black armor and sending sparks flying. It let out a strange metallic screech, half electronic, half alive. Up! Before it stumbled and fell hard against the trees, the second hunter reacted instantly, swinging its energy blade toward Leora with frightening speed. She moved faster, her body twisting with almost inhuman grace, and the blade missed her by inches. Her hand shot forward, glowing brighter, and slammed against the hunter's arm. The weapon shattered in a flash of sparks. Leaving the machine stumbling back in confusion, John could only watch, frozen in awe. This wasn't a fight, it was a storm. Leora moved like lightning, each strike of her glowing hands tearing through. Steel that should have been unbreakable, yet she wasn't invincible. Every time she released her power, her body trembled, her breath sharp, her glow flickering like a candle in the wind. The first hunter rose again, sparks dripping from its damaged chest. It lunged toward John this time, its face glowing red, its blade raised high. He barely had time to raise his bat in instinct, though he knew it was hopeless. At the last second, Leora appeared between them, her hand thrusting forward. A brilliant flash erupted, and the hunter was thrown back with a deafening crash, its body splitting open and collapsing into the dirt. John fell back, gasping, his ears ringing. He could smell the sharp, metallic scent of burned machinery. Slowly, he lifted his gaze. The hunters were broken, their bodies twitching in the dirt. Silence fell. Leora dropped to her knees, her glow fading quickly, her chest heaving with exhaustion. She pressed her hands into the earth, as if grounding herself. The once terrifying light that had filled her was now only faint sparks crawling across her skin. John crawled closer, his voice unsteady. "Leora, are you okay?" Head slowly, her glowing eyes now dim and weary. "It takes everything," she whispered. "This power. It is not meant to last. I can fight, but only for a short time. Then," she trailed off, her voice fading into silence. John stared at her, his heart pounding. The girl who had begged to wash in his bathroom hours ago had just destroyed two monsters that no human weapon could touch. But she was also fragile, vulnerable. In ways he hadn't imagined, the ground beneath them trembled suddenly. A faint hum returned, deeper and stronger. John froze. He muttered. From the trees came more lights, dozens this time, flickering like cold stars in the darkness. The forest filled with the sound of mechanical footsteps, louder, heavier, surrounding them on all sides. The hunters had not come alone. Leora staggered to her feet, her glow faint, but her resolve unbroken. She glanced at John, her expression grim. "They will not stop until I am theirs again. If they take me, John, everything ends. For you, for your world." John's stomach dropped. He looked at the approaching glow in the forest, and then back at her. "Then what do we do?" She reached out and gripped his hand tightly, her fingers warm despite the cold night. "We run. But not just to survive. There is a place. Hidden, far from here. If we reach it, I can show you the truth about me, about why I came here, about why they fear me." The lights closed in, the hunters stepping into view one by one, their blades humming, their glowing faces turning toward them like watchful predators. John's breath shook, but he tightened his grip on her hand. "Then let's go." Together they ran into the dark woods once more, the sound of the machines echoing behind them, the night alive with the promise of a revelation that would change everything. The forest seemed endless, but John's lungs burned as if fire had filled them. He and Leora stumbled through the undergrowth, guided only by her faint glow and the deafening sound of mechanical footsteps growing closer. The hunters moved like a tide, their voices humming in cold harmony, the trees trembling under their march. John's every instinct screamed at him to stop, to give up, but the way Leora's hand clutched his made him keep moving. She was weaker now, her glow barely flickering, her body trembling with exhaustion, yet her steps never faltered, her eyes set on something unseen ahead. Finally, the trees broke apart, revealing a clearing unlike anything John had ever seen. The ground was covered in strange black stone, smooth and shining under the pale moon. In the center stood a structure half buried, ancient, pulsing faintly with light. It was shaped like a broken pillar, but as John looked closer, he realized it wasn't human, wasn't natural. It was alien. "This," Leora whispered, her voice almost reverent. "This is where I was meant to go." Before John could question her, the forest behind them erupted. The hunters spilled into the clearing, dozens of them, their glowing blades humming like an orchestra of death. Their leader stepped forward, taller than the rest, its face glowing crimson, its voice a low, mechanical growl. "Return, Subject 0. You belong to us. John's blood turned cold. Subject 0. The words hit him like a punch. He turned to Leora, his voice breaking. What are they talking about, Leora? Who are you really? Her glowing eyes met his, filled with sorrow and determination. I was made, John, not born. They created me in their labs, built me from stolen DNA and alien code. I am their weapon, their perfect soldier. But something in me broke free, something they didn't plan for. I wanted more than their orders. I wanted to choose. She looked at him, her grip on his hand tightening. That's why I ran. That's why I found you. The hunters advanced, their steps in perfect rhythm. John's chest tightened with terror. We can't fight them all, he said. Leora shook her head. No, but I can end this. Her glow flared, brighter than before, her body trembling violently as if her very bones resisted the power inside her.
Oh.
The stone pillar in the center of the clearing lit up in response, its surface splitting open, revealing a core of pure, swirling light. The ground shook as energy poured from it, and John was thrown back by the sheer force. Leora stood in the center, her arms raised, her voice echoing with power. They made me to destroy, but I will not be their weapon. I will be humanity's shield. The hunters lunged forward, blades raised, but the pillar burst with light, and beams of energy shot outward, ripping through the machines like paper. One by one, the hunters were torn apart, their bodies shattering into sparks and ash. Their screams filled the night, a mix of metal and rage, until only silence remained. John shielded his eyes from the blinding glow, his heart hammering. When the light finally dimmed, the clearing was filled with the smoking remains of the hunters. The black stone pillar glowed faintly, cracks running across its surface. As if the power had nearly destroyed it, Leora fell to her knees, her glow fading almost completely now.
Ow.
John rushed to her side, catching her before she collapsed. Was pale, trembling, her voice weak. It's done. They won't take me back. John looked around at the wreckage, then back at her. But what about you? That power, it's killing you. Her eyes opened slowly, her gaze soft on him. Maybe, but I had to choose. To fight for myself. For you. She gave a faint smile, tears glistening in her alien eyes. You understand? Now why I came to your home, why I begged for something so simple, to be clean. I wasn't asking for water. I was asking for a chance, to wash away what they made me into. John's chest ached. He pulled her closer, holding her as the night air grew cold again. For a long time, neither spoke. The silence heavy with all that had been lost and all that still remained unanswered. Then, from the distance, a faint glow appeared on the horizon. Not the cold light of the hunters. This was warm, golden, like dawn. Leora lifted her head weakly, her lips parting in wonder. Not the end, she whispered. Something else is coming. John followed her gaze, his pulse quickening. He didn't know if the glow was rescued, another enemy or something. Far stranger. But one thing was certain, his life and hers had changed forever. And whatever came next, they would face it together.